This is dictation at 200 words per minute. Counsel for the people is Mr. Ring. Counsel for the defendant is Mr. Heckman. Here's the glossary. Carlos Jaramillo, Robert Ring, William Heckman, Fritz Scholten, Rolex, San Francisco Chronicle, Dr. Timothy Williams, or Tim, anesthesiologist, Walnut Creek, Inspector Gary Johnson, Ralph K. Davies Medical Center.
Plaintiff's attorney is Mr. Ring.
The witness?
I'm the court.
Defense attorney, Mr. Heckman.
Beginning with the court. On the record, this is the case of the People versus Carlos Jaramillo, number 1182572. The matter is on at this time for a felony preliminary examination. Counsel, please state your name for the record and indicate the party that you represent.
Robert Ring, appearing on behalf of the people, Your Honor.
William Heckman for Mr. Jaramillo, Your Honor.
Are you ready to proceed, Mr. Ring?
Yes, Your Honor. Actually, if I could call my first witness, Fritz Scholten, S-C-H-O-L-T-E-N.
Are you prepared to proceed, Mr. Heckman?
Pardon me?
Are you prepared to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Would you step forward and be sworn? Please take the stand and have a seat. State your full name and spell it for the record.
My name is Fritz, F-R-I-T-Z, last name Scholten, S-C-H-O-L-T-E-N.
All right.
Mr. Scholten, towards the latter part of July, the first part of August, were you the possessor of a Rolex watch?
Yes.
Could you describe that watch, sir?
It was a Rolex Man's President's watch, 2 or 3 years old. I owned it for a couple of years. I had it ready for sale. I wanted to sell it. It was an 18-karat gold Man's President watch.
Listen closely to the question that is going to be asked of you and just answer that question.
Okay.
What steps did you take to sell that watch, sir?
I had put an advertisement in the paper, in the San Francisco Chronicle.
And about when was that?
That was, I would say, the last week in July, around the 24th, 25th of July. I can't recall the date.
Did you get a response to your ad in the paper by anybody who identified himself as a physician of sorts?
I got many responses. One of the responses was on Wednesday, the 2nd of August. I got a call from a gentleman who showed interest in the watch. In the course of the conversation, he identified himself as Dr. Tim Williams, and he said that he was an anesthesiologist and that he would be seriously interested in buying such a watch, and he would call me back and possibly set up an appointment to take a good look at the watch.
And when this person who identified himself as Dr. Tim Williams called you claiming that he was interested in the watch, did you have any reservations at all about this person who called and identified himself?
Yes, I had.
And what reservations did you have about this individual?
I had heard an incident from an acquaintance of mine from Walnut Creek that he had lost a watch to someone.
I would have to object. It is hearsay at this point.
This is state of mind of this individual. It is not offered for truth, only for the state of mind of this individual as to why he acted the way he acted, Your Honor.
All right. It is going to be limited to that then.
I had heard an incident where someone had also a watch for sale in Walnut Creek a couple of months ago. He did the same steps I did, namely put an ad in the paper, and this person lost a watch to someone by the name of Dr. Tim Williams, an anesthesiologist, and so I was alert that something might not be in order.
Now, because of this information that you had, what steps did you then take, sir?
First, I contacted the San Francisco Police Department. I talked there to Inspector Gary Johnson. Secondly, I talked to some friends in the business, in the jewelry business. I learned of other instances. For example, one incident in Los Angeles with the same type of a situation, namely that someone by the name...
You contacted?
Other people, and I got a fax, a copy of a police report.
Now, did the male voice who identified himself as Dr. Timothy or Tim Williams ever recontact you, sir?
Can you repeat your question, please?
Did the caller who identified himself the first day as this Dr. Timothy Williams ever recontact you?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
The next day he called twice, actually. The first time he called about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening. I wasn't home by that time. And then he called me again about 9:30, 9:45 Friday. I believe it was the 3rd of August.
And what was the topic of that conversation?
The topic of this conversation was that he would like to see the watch. He would like to purchase the watch. He asked me about a form of payment, and I said either cash payment or cashier's check would be fine. Then the subject came up of where to meet. I proposed to the person maybe to meet at a jewelry store or at a bank. The person mentioned to me that he would rather prefer to meet me in his hospital, namely Davies Medical Center, I believe it is called, on Castro Street.
Did you in fact go to the hospital at 12 noon on August the 4th?
Yes, I did.
Make sure you wait until he completes the question before you begin your answer.
Did you have that Rolex watch in your possession that you intended to sell to this Dr. Williams?
Yes, I had.
What was the value of that Rolex watch?
And I guess about $7,000.
Were you met by somebody who identified himself as Dr. Timothy Williams or Dr. Tim Williams?
Yes, I was.
Is the person who met you and identified himself as Dr. Tim Williams in court today?
Yes, he is.
Could you point that individual out and describe what he is wearing just from the waist up?
He is sitting right there in the red clothing.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has described the only person sitting here wearing red clothing. The defendant?
It will.
How was the defendant dressed when he was playing Dr. Williams?
At what time? When he met me in the hospital?
Yes.
When he met me in the hospital, he was wearing gray slacks, a white shirt with a nice silk red or blue tie, and he had a stethoscope around his neck.
And you, in fact, handed the defendant the watch?
Yes, I handed it to him for inspection.
And what did the defendant do at this point when you handed him the watch?
He expressed interest in the watch, then he proposed to change locations. He wanted to go to another room, to his office, I think he said, but I am not quite sure. He wanted to check with a colleague of his, Dr. Zimmerman, who would be able to verify the authenticity of the watch.
Did you change locations?
Yes, we did.
And who had possession of the watch during this period of time?
I did.
Once you were at this new location, what happened there?
We took the elevator, I believe, to the second floor, and for unexplained reasons for me, Dr. Williams got kind of disturbed, nervous. After a little bit more conversation, he left the room in a hurry with the remark that he would try to find Dr. Zimmerman.
Now, was there anything that you saw that took place either in this room or in the other room that may have caused the defendant to get nervous, in your opinion?
Judge, I would object as calling for speculation.
That is sustained.
If I can rephrase the question?
All right.
Mr. Schulten, is there anything you observed take place immediately prior to, in your opinion, the defendant acting nervous?
Well, first,
Could I just ask you to clarify? Are we talking about after they had moved to the second location?
Well, just prior to him becoming nervous,
Just prior to him becoming nervous.
was there anything he observed?
First, I was pretty nervous myself, as you can imagine.
Hold on, listen to the question. They didn't ask you whether you were nervous or not, all right? Just relax. The question was there anything that you observed, any actions or activities? Am I right, Mr. Ring?
That's right.
Just prior to the time that you said you observed signs of nervousness on behalf of the defendant, Mr. Jaramillo, did you observe anything?
Yes, I did, and in fact...
Well, you have answered it. The next question is going to be what?
What was it that you saw immediately preceding this display of nervousness?
In my assumption, it was maybe the fact that...
Listen,
I don't know how to answer the question.
just relax. I can help you along. Was there anything that you observed just prior to him becoming nervous? If you didn't observe anything, don't mention it, but just state what you observed, all right?
Then I must say I cannot answer the question.
And what was it that you did observe, sir?
I just said I cannot answer the question.
All right, I am sorry. Did the defendant, before he left, gain control of your watch, your Rolex watch?
He had control at a certain time. The box with the watch was in that exam room.
Was where?
In the room we were in, what appeared to be an exam room.
Do you have the watch today, sir?
I don't have it with me, no. I sold it in the meantime.
I have no further questions at this time of this witness, Your Honor.
You may inquire.
All right, Mr. Schulten, could you describe a little more for us what type of Rolex watch this was?
It was Rolex model number 18038 was the model number. The serial number, I can't recall totally. It was a 6 million serial number, and it was an 18-karat gold Rolex man's president.
Now, you stated in answer to the district attorney that you estimated the value of this particular watch to be $7,000. What do you base that on?
The current retail price of this watch is $11,700.
This is as a new watch?
As a new watch, yes.
And how old was this particular watch?
Well, according to the serial number, I would guess it was 3 to 5 years old.
And you are familiar with the relationship between the serial number and the year?
I think I am, yes.
Was the watch in operative condition?
Yes, it was.
You didn't bring it with you today?
Well, you know, because it is...
The question is, did you bring it with you today?
No, I didn't.